actually what has happened. It's amazing in Brazil. You have first the leader of the country who was elected president, Dilma Rousseff, impeached on charges that, even if you believe them, are extremely petty in the context of the corruption claims lodged against the people who removed her. So you took out the elected president of PT, which severely harmed PT, and now you take the next PT candidate who was president and who likely will be president again, and you convict him on charges and make him ineligible to run for office for the next 20 years. It certainly looks like, whether, again, these claims are meritorious or not, that there is a real attempt to preclude the public from having the leaders that it wants, which are the leaders of PT. And at the same time that you have that going on, once Dilma was removed from office, you moved from a center-left government with PT to a center-right government with her successor, Michel Temer, who formed a coalition with the right-wing PSDB party. And now they're talking about removing Temer and installing the next person in line, Rodrigo Maia, who is the head of the lower house, essentially the Speaker of the House, who is a member of the right-wing Democrats Party, which means you'll go from a center-left party to a center-right party to a right-wing party without a single vote being cast. And so there's a lot of concern and a lot of perception on the part of Brazilians that this is a further blow to democracy, that this is really just politically driven, that there are all kinds of corrupt figures on the right, including President Michel Temer and Senator Aécio Neves, who was the candidate the right ran against Dilma in 2014 and almost beat her, about whom there's much more tangible and concrete evidence of criminality, and yet haven't been convicted, haven't even left office. Aécio is still in the Senate. He was ordered by a court to be removed, and now he's been returned, and Temer remains running the country, even though the whole country heard him on audio approving bribes paid to witnesses to keep them silent. So I think it has to be underscored that there is reasonable debate about how strong the case is against Lula, but the way in which these cases are being prosecuted, the people who are paying prices and the people who are being protected, does give a strong appearance of it being politically motivated, whether that's really the intention or not.
And Glenn, there have been reports that protesters or people came out on the streets yesterday following the conviction, both in support of the conviction and opposed to it. So could you talk about that and the people who have been who've approved, who think this is a good decision made by the judiciary to convict Lula?
Sure. So this goes back to the protest movements against Dilma, which the Brazilian media, which is a corporate media very much opposed to Dilma and very much in favor of impeachment, depicted it as this kind of uprising on the part of the people. And the reality was always much different. There's a huge segment of the population, primarily the wealthy, the oligarchs, the upper middle class, that dislike PT because of its socialist policies. PT has become much less socialist over the years. They've actually gotten into bed with some oligarchs, the way the Democratic Party has in the U.S., but they're still perceived as a socialist party, and compared to the right, they certainly oppose austerity more. They favor greater spending on social programs and the like. And so there is a segment of the country that hates PT on ideological grounds. And that is the segment of the population that has been trying to defeat PT at the ballot box for 16 years now and has failed to do so, that were out on the streets demanding Dilma's impeachment. The same people who wanted to beat her at the ballot box and failed then went to the streets to demand her impeachment, which is not surprising. And so the people who are out on the streets now demanding that Lula be imprisoned or celebrating his imprisonment are the people who have just always hated PT and hated Lula strictly on ideological grounds.